Good morning, Henny Jepson. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you? You look
Yeah, I'm good,
nice.
thank you. Thank you. You look nice as well. Again, I like the hair. It's very cute. It's
Oh,
given like
thanks.
sort of teachery secretary vibes.
Yes, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah,
Secretary vibes.
like a GP receptionist who's actually going to be nice
But a
and give me
nice
an
one,
appointment.
yes.
A nice one, yeah. Who's
I'll have
kind.
that. It's great.
You look like a kind receptionist. So today. We had quite a big response from an episode we did a while back on procrastination. Who knew this was
Hmm.
such a global problem for
The
us?
episode where we procrastinated on the episode.
Yes, and then our listeners procrastinated by listening and then messaging us. We all loved a bit of a procrastination cycle. We always chat about kind of what people are saying to us in the DMs and the feedback and stuff that we get. And we had quite a lot of you guys saying that you felt like you were procrastinating with perfectionism, or was there some sort of link between the two? Because it's like how to
Hmm.
discern between, am I a perfectionist, or is this just a really smart way to um,
Oh,
procrastinate?
yes.
A bit
Yes.
of
Yes.
self-awareness in the DMs, which we love to see.
Hmm.
And
And
I
then
see this.
procrastinating by thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah, because that's a whole new research phase you can get into. Aren't we all so funny? And I see it in my group where people are like, I am not going to launch this yet because my price list doesn't look right. The formatting isn't perfect. I just need to get my website right. You know, we talked about like the
Yeah.
contrastive branding, and
Hmm.
I think there is such a crossover with the perfectionism side of like it just has
Yeah,
to
I do.
be right. I'm not going to launch my social media because I haven't got my logo back from my designer and I can't do anything
Hmm.
till it looks perfect. I need the perfect feed. Perfectionism is rife.
Hmm.
So I'd love to know
Hmm.
your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think it is. I think they are sort of connected and a bit of a cycle, and
Mm,
I think if you are a perfectionist, like perfectionists, people who are perfectionists sort of have this belief that you can achieve perfection. And
mm,
so that's such a driving force. I think if I just try harder, I can,
yeah,
make this perfect. And that belief is really the driver. But I think the thing is that when you're in that zone, you end up procrastinating.
hmm,
So there's that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's why they're linked, because when you're a perfectionist, you tend not to want to show, let's just say this, show people something until it's perfect.
Hmm.
And then that takes years. And so it
Yeah.
ends up being procrastination, and people are handing things in late because they're worried and all of that stuff. And I think ultimately, a lot of these things, I think perfectionism and procrastination sometimes can really be linked back to confidence issues.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it, to
yeah.
summarize
I think that
briefly,
makes a lot of
I think
sense. A
confidence,
brief.
yeah,
Yeah, I
briefly,
think
yeah.
that makes it does make a lot of sense because the people that I interact with who say they're perfectionists, I would say that there is a lack of confidence in them as well. Whereas the people that I see who I would say seem very confident don't seem to have the perfectionist thing. So I think that's a really good link to make. I saw a
Yeah.
post and I shared it because I know that I have a lot of followers who identify as being perfectionists. And you know me, I love to share a post that makes you go like, "Oh God,"
Ooh,
like
gut
a gut
punch.
punch, a proper gut punch. And it said something like, "Are you really a perfectionist, or are you just scared of how your best effort will be perceived?" And I thought, and again, I had like a
Mm,
massive reaction to that of like, if you do something that you decide is perfect, which I don't like, I personally don't believe perfection exists, so it's really, really hard to achieve, nigh impossible. It's like if you do put this massive amount of effort in, and then like you say, show it to the world. Maybe it's your website, maybe it's like a thing you've created, maybe it's that photo of that balayage that you did, and you thought this is the one, this is perfect. Like there's not a hair out of place. If you then share that with the world, and someone goes, some TikTok arsehole's like, I don't like it,
How
it's
much?
yellow or whatever. How much?
Yeah.
Looks shit. Looks better before. Then
Look at that
if
blow
you,
dry.
yeah, oh my God, this is why we hate TikTok. Um, then it hurts more because it's like, that was my best effort. And if
Yes.
that's not received well, then I'm not
Then
good,
what?
or, whatever. Yeah, then
Yeah,
what? Yeah.
yeah, I completely agree about. This is completely connected. So how I think about perfectionism, and I have a webinar that I teach about confidence, and perfectionism, the big part
Yeah.
of that. And one of the connections I make is that it is about having enough resilience to cope with feedback. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes we put off, let's say, posting the photograph or handing in the something or putting out the education, whatever, because we feel that we aren't strong enough to handle the feedback. Exactly what you're saying. If someone says
Yeah.
your best effort isn't good enough, what are you going to do? And so exactly that. I think there's people sat on courses that are good, but they're not perfect yet. People are not entering awards because they don't want to go through the judging process. It's too
Yeah.
wounding. It's like if they don't get nominated, even they just don't sometimes know deep down that's not cope. They're not going to cope with that. And so I think in some
Yeah.
ways, some people do know that they're not quite resilient enough for the feedback. And then again, it drives the perfectionism and then the procrastination, and I
It
think it can come from
sounds
either end.
it sounds like self-preservation or self-protection. Like, I can't
Yeah,
deal with
I think
the
that.
I'm not resilient enough with the feedback or it
Yeah,
not being received
yeah.
well, and I just don't want to be hurt. So I'll just not put it
Yeah,
out.
and I also think there's a part of people that must think that it's not possible to change.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, I know. I
Oh,
went right into
really?
therapy mode then in my brain. I
Yeah, I
started
love
making the
that.
connections, but I think because I just think, oh, well, you need to build some resilience. Like, if someone comes talking to me, I'd be like, oh, okay, we need to build some resilience, and these are the ways we're going to do it. But I think when you're just avoiding doing the things, it's because you've probably not quite made that connection in your head that this is something you can get better at. But the trouble is, it's scary. In
Well,
all the
yeah,
things,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a bit like, you might have to do a bit of the thing that you're scared of, and you think, no, thank you. And so it
yeah.
becomes this sort of cycle. But I do think that sometimes there's a lot of people who just think this is how I am and something I'll have to accept and behave accordingly.
Very much so. It's very chicken and egg, isn't it? Like, and like anything growth related, is like you have to do the thing you're avoiding to get the thing you want, but you don't want to do the thing
Yes,
that you're
but I
avoiding.
do think, I really think that there are things you can do before that. Like that sounds a
Yeah,
bit like exposure therapy, doesn't it? And
yeah.
I'm scared of snakes, and I always think if I go and get that sorted, someone's just going to make me go and look at snakes, so I don't go. So I'm avoiding
Um,
going to certain countries,
that's so funny. I've just
which
like
is just
decided that
hilarious.
our next meetup's going to be very snake related. I've decided I'm going to
Yes, I'm very
just chuck
Indiana
you.
Jones, but
Yeah,
I hope people get that reference. They'll be like,
yeah,
"What is she talking about?" But I do think with a lot of the stuff that people are talking about, where in the hair and beauty industry, not putting out the course, not posting the thing,
yeah,
it just I think there's things that you can do preemptively before you have to get a little bit brave. I do think there are
yeah.
things, yeah.
I've got a question for you. Would you identify as a perfectionist?
No. I'm quite slap happy, me.
Yeah,
I'm a bit of a that'll do person.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think there's been little phases when I was younger where I might have leaned into that a little bit. And my favourite saying, which is down that path madness lies. And
yeah.
so I'm not a perfectionist. I definitely don't identify as one. I've realised, and more so since I've been running the Resilient Hairdresser, that you've just got to crack on, just do stuff and see what happens. However, what's worth noting, Maddie, is I've had buckets and buckets and buckets of therapy.
Yeah,
6 years of therapy,
yeah.
and worked on myself and my confidence and my self-esteem and my self-image and all of that stuff. And so that has certainly really helped, the fact that if I do things now like send out the wrong link, which is a common occurrence for me and you, isn't it? That's the sort of thing that
Yeah,
we're likely to do. I don't beat myself up about it massively. I don't lie
yeah.
awake at night thinking, oh no. I just think, oh, I'm human. I sent out the
Mm,
wrong link and stuff like that. And so
mm-hmm.
I don't identify as a perfectionist, but I also think I wasn't just born like that to some
Yeah,
degree,
yeah.
There's a lot of work on myself that has really helps that be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm quite a resilient person, which is lucky because I talk about it all the time and
I was
teach
going
it.
to say, I should hope so.
I'm not making it up, gang.
That'd be awkward.
And yeah, and so I always think this. I think I can rely on myself to figure stuff out in the moment, and I think that's the definition
Mm-hmm.
of resilience. Figure stuff out in the
Yeah.
moment, or be okay with some criticism. And I think I've got enough of a personality to smooth things out sometimes,
Yeah.
and that sort
Yeah.
of thing. And so, yeah, I'm going to say no. What about you? Are you a
Absolutely
perfectionist?
not. No, not at all. But to like echo what you said, you are a therapist, so you were a practicing therapist. I've been in therapy for 3 years. I had a bunch of coaching, mentorship, and all this. So again, this is not like a. I don't think I've ever been a perfectionist, but I'm trying to rack my brains, and there's one thing in particular that stands out for me that I think might relate to listeners. I did my qualification for my award in education and training.
Did you?
So yeah, I did it years and years ago when I was about 23. It's about 12 years ago because I wanted to teach extensions because that was what I did, and I thought I knew I would love to teach and share that skill with people. I went in a partnership with a really good friend of mine, Gemma, and we wrote the manual. And I sat on that manual for about, oh my god, like 3 years or something, 4 years, because I was like,
Oh,
it's just not right.
wow.
Like it just took so long. In fact, I must have done my award even earlier than that actually, but there was such a long space between those two things. And what it was, if I kind of look back with 2020 hindsight, is that when we sort of made it public that we were going to go into this, and this is quite controversial, I think, we were going to train non-hairdressers. And the reason we were going to train non-hairdressers is because I was a non-hairdresser when I trained in
Mm-hmm.
extensions. I then went on to get my qualification. I also think there were some big gaps in the NVQ training personally. And I know some incredible extensionists who aren't hairdressers and some not so good extensionists who are. So I don't think the level 2 or 3 maketh a great extensionist necessarily.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion and my lived experience and that of my colleagues. But when we made the industry aware of this, for some reason, not her, but I got absolutely bollocked about it by a very small number of people. That someone in particular who's quite prominent in the industry really was pissed off about that, and publicly I was like getting DMs because it was so quite mean what this person was saying. They said, "You'll make your money, but you've sold your soul to the devil." And I remember that like word for word because it was such a wild thing to say. Weirdly, this person and me now have a good relationship. Lots of time's gone past and whatever, but I have a lot of respect for them, and I think they do for me. But yeah, at the time, and I was like, part of me was like, "Screw you! I'm going to show you, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to show you that I can
Mm.
make great extensionists." But another part was like, my God, I felt like the spotlight was on us, like
There's
so
people
much
waiting for me
more.
to fail.
Yes, and
People are going
that
to
that
pick it
was
apart.
yeah, and that was hard.
Yeah.
And then anyway, long story, we brought it out. We did it like it was very effective. We launched the training
Oh, you
eventually.
did? God.
Yeah, yeah. I obviously don't do it anymore. We just did it for a bit. It's hard with partners and timings, and I did it in my salon and things like that. But we did launch it in the end. I think it was like kind of not far pre-pandemic as well. But yeah,
Mm.
that was the feeling for me. It wasn't like I needed to be perfect. It was just my God, I'm aware that these people, there's a few people who are waiting for me to like cock up here. So I
Yeah.
I appreciate that
Yeah.
people feel like that as well. Um,
Yeah. That's a really interesting story, Maddie. And when we get off recording, I'm going to be going, I need more details.
yeah, Who is it? What's the Jen? Yeah, it was like
But
a wild
yeah.
little time in a tiny extension group. It was like the most dramatic few days that I've ever had. You know, it was a bit insane.
I also think that what you're talking about is sometimes people's worst fears, though, isn't it? You
Yeah,
know, like that's behind it. I mean, I would say, especially procrastination and stuff like, you know, just
yeah,
again, it's that what will people say and how will I
yeah,
handle it? And it seems
yeah,
like you did handle it, though, eventually, you know,
yeah.
because
It
I
took
was
us
wondering if you
longer
did sit
than.
on that forever because I didn't know
No, no,
about
no,
this part of you.
no. We did. We
Um,
did bring it out in the end. And now, what I'd say to anyone who's feeling like that is like, honestly, if well, one with so much more hindsight and therapy and things like that, I am so much more. Um, it's like this awareness of a lot of the time from that person. It's projection. Also, me and you talk about this all the time of like not mind reading. Like it is not my job to be in the person's head who thinks that they have
mhm,
this belief, wherever that belief was formed, whatever.
mhm.
I know that I haven't sold my soul to the devil. I know that my
Yeah,
experience is like, that I was not a hairdresser and I went on to be a good
valid.
extensionist. Yeah, it's valid for
Yeah.
me. People are allowed their opinions. Also, I'm not going to let the opinion of one person derail my entire like career and what I want to
Mm,
do. But yeah, back to your kind of the point you wrapped up with, because I think about this all the time. I think about resilience and I think about like why, what it is about me or what it is about you and why other people struggle with that. And I think I always boil it down to
mm,
like a couple of things. Is like I really trust myself. I have a really high level of self trust to figure stuff out. I have lots of evidence that I have figured things out. I
mhm.
have evidence that I can get over work through really hard things, and I feel very resourced with the people in my life. So I'm like, if I can't figure it out, I will know a person who can figure it out, and I know who to go to, and I
Yeah.
feel very supported by my network. I have a supportive network, so
Well,
I
and you've got
think,
the confidence to ask for help.
yeah, just go. Who is it that I might? If I can't do it, who can? How can I go to that
Mhm,
person and ask them for help to
mhm,
do it? So
mhm.
that's where my resilience and I think therefore my confidence comes from. But yeah, I mean, if you want to
Yeah,
have any sort of business, whether it's behind the chair, whether it's as an educator, like it is complicated. Like there is always going to be like we always mess up. It's almost like a tradition. Whenever I launch a program, I will forget to like take something off draft. I will not schedule one email. I will send the wrong
yeah,
link. Like it just, now I'm like so accepted. I just tell people like this is what's going to happen. I'm going to
yeah.
mess something up. You're going to
Yes.
tell me. I'm not going to be mad or upset.
And we're all
You
going to
can't
be
hurt my
fine.
feelings, and then we're going to learn, and I'm going to learn a bit more how to use my system that I've been
Yeah,
using for the last 4
yeah.
years.
I think one of the things I've just gotten good at is, and I say it all the time, down that path madness lies. And sometimes
Yeah.
I have a thought and I think to myself, I'm not going to indulge that because
Yeah.
nothing good will come from it. And I
Yeah.
don't know when I started doing that, but it's quite a long time ago. But,
Yeah.
it's not like I don't have the thoughts of, oh, you could really worry about that. What's
Yeah.
this person think about you? And then I just think, down that path madness lies, Hayley, stop it. And I just sort
Yeah.
of go, I'm not going to indulge those thoughts because thoughts aren't facts, And I just
Yes.
remind myself of that a lot.
Yeah.
And then that's one of the big tools in the moment that I'm using because I think I have a choice which thoughts I have to pay attention to.
I think
I
that's
remember, do you know
it's
what?
yeah.
Sorry, go on. Let me tell you
No,
this
go on.
story. Right?
No,
When I
go
was
on.
when I was a therapist at the college for young people, eventually one after about 2 years of talking to this person, I started explaining that thoughts weren't facts, and I gave them this book about talking about your inner monologue and stuff and how you. And he said to me, Hayley, if you'd have given me this book 2 years ago, I wouldn't still be here.
Oh,
Like,
like thanks, pal.
yeah, sorry, I've only just come to think, this. And he was just like, but
Yeah.
it really changed everything for him because he didn't know that thoughts weren't facts. He thought that everything that went through his head had to be paid attention to. He didn't know it was like a
Yeah.
filtering system. And why
It's
would you? Because no
it's
one
quite
tells you.
revolutionary. Yeah, like my first like understanding of this is when I read the Chimp Paradox, which is like one of my favorite
Your
books ever. It's
favourite.
a really good one to if you want to start getting into, I guess, self development, and he just makes really good sense of like the order in which your brain does things. So like you something
Yeah.
happens, your chimp brain kicks in, which is survival brain, which is like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Which is exactly why, like, when we do a price increase, we think we're going to get kicked out of community, we're going to, live in a bin or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, what
And
will people think is being kicked out of the tribe? It's that, is
yeah,
kicked out of the
just
community, all
death,
the
yeah.
same things. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, but I love that. It's almost like I almost in my head see like a little fishing rod, like there's something dangled. It's like a bait. There's like a thought going, oh, do you want to think about this? Do you
What
want to
about
panic
this
about this a bit?
one?
And we're like, no, I will not be taking that bait, brain. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll be going
yeah.
down
And
this
so I
path.
just, yeah, so I just think it's good. I'll tell you the book because people might be going,
Yeah.
which book?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Which
called The
one's yours?
Happiness Trap. The Happiness Trap.
Ooh, I've not read that.
I
I'll get
can't
that on my
remember who
list.
writes it, but
Yeah,
it's
we'll
a great
find
book.
it.
Dan Harris, maybe? Maybe.
Yeah.
The Happiness Trap. Let me see if I can see it on my shelf. No, don't know. Don't know where it is.
We'll find it. We'll get it in the show notes. Do you see a link with perfectionism with like ADHD? Because I see this a lot in neurodiverse people. Do you see that
Yes,
too?
hard,
Yeah.
yes. Hard, yes. And I've been reading a lot that perfectionism is really a form of anxiety. And, it is. It's
Yeah.
that nothing's okay if it's not perfect. I'm not okay if it's not perfect. There's an anxiety related to that. And anxiety is a big part of ADHD. And so perfectionism I would say is definitely got a connection for
Yeah.
neurodiverse people. And it's also connected to, I would say, where this is a thing for ADHD people is RSD, rejection sensitivity disorder. Dysmorphia.
Dysphoria.
Dysphoria. There you go.
That feels,
Rejection
yeah.
sensitivity dysphoria,
Yeah.
which basically means this: some people with ADHD have an extremely high sensitivity to rejection or even perceived rejection. So what that means is they can perceive things as rejection that aren't, but they can see it
Yeah.
coming. And so what I thought was really interesting when I did some education around ADHD was to learn that for a lot of ADHD people, particularly if you've RSD is strong for you, you perceive messages in a weird way. So it's like if something's positive, it's positive, great, you get it. If something's bad, great, well, not great, but I understand that it's bad.
Yeah.
But if someone gives you a message that's neutral, a lot of people with RSD and ADHD will put that into the bad gang.
I see
So
this.
does that make
So
sense?
yeah, like there's literally a post I saw in my group, and it was sometimes people will say, how do I like, am I reading this right? Or like where they'll share something that a client said to them. I tend to read, my default is like neutral, because again, we've done a lot of work on like not applying feelings to other people's communication or not mind reading. So I'll kind of just go, what's the fact? Like, what's the most neutral thing they've said? Or even like, what, give them benefit of the doubt, what's the nicest way they've said this? And it's like, hi, can't do this. Or like someone had said they put the price up and they were like, oh, I'll need to cancel my appointments. And I just saw that as clients made a budgetary decision. It's neutral. It's neither good nor bad. They've communicated. That's a good thing to me. The way that it was perceived in the comments was like, this is, people disrespect us and people
How
think that we should
blunt
work
was
for
that?
nothing. Yeah, now it's like, ooh, yeah, it's like putting on glasses, isn't it? Of going, how can I read this in the most upsetting or
Yeah.
dysregulating or angry way?
I sometimes read messages in a different tone. I try it out. I
Yeah.
read them out loud in different tones.
Like a
So I
happy
read them out
voice,
in a
yeah.
happy tone and I
Yeah.
read them in a miserable, and I see which one
Yeah.
seems to work. Sometimes I've done
Yeah.
that. But I think what's
That's
so
funny.
interesting is that for some ADHD brains, because what we've got to remember is not everyone with ADHD is the same. And so
Yeah.
RSD is stronger in some people and not in others. However, there's a tendency to perceive neutrality as negative. And I think when you know that, that's really useful information.
Yeah.
And so feedback can become hard because unless someone's saying, that is amazing, Maddie, you might just perceive it as that is terrible, Maddie.
It's like you've
And
got this
that's
little
it. Unless
antenna
it's
out, isn't it?
glowing.
For yeah.
If it's not glowing, it's shit. That's it. It's like, that's your options, amazing or shit.
That's
And that's,
hard.
it's a
Yeah.
difficult thing to live with. And I
Yeah.
think when you don't know it's a thing as well, you're just walking around in the world
Yeah.
thinking that people are saying negative things to you a lot and perceiving
Uh,
how you behave in a negative way.
I think there's going to be some people listening right now being like, shoot, where they've just sort of clicked, or maybe this might be the first time that, because I'd never heard of RSD until I was diagnosed with ADHD. Again, I don't struggle with that, but like back to what we've said, it's probably because of lots of kind of active work on this. Um, it's funny. I was talking to my friend who's quite sort of socially anxious, but again, like perfectionism, like really falls into this sort of camp. And she was like, "Oh, when I first started hanging out with you, I went away and I was so worried that like people didn't like me or they were thinking bad things about me." And I was like, "Mate, I was like, my default is like." I'm a nice person. I'm likable. People like me until they don't like me. And she was like laughing. I was like, yeah, that's how I move in the world. Because I think how
Yeah.
distressing it would be to always start off on the foot of people don't like me. They're talking about me. I'm not nice to be around. I was like, I don't want to believe that. That
Yeah,
feels
it's much
hard.
more comfortable when you like yourself.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember when I was younger, I didn't like myself at all.
yeah.
And
Same.
now I do. And
Yeah,
life's easier,
it's much easier,
But,
isn't it? Yeah,
I didn't just wake up one day thinking I
yeah,
was ace.
yeah. I mean, that would be nice. Sort of drink the potion and be like, I
Well,
am
that'd be a
a great
treat.
person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I took this
we would
vitamin
be.
and
Yeah,
now I think I'm mega. No, it took
yeah,
a lot of stuff, but yeah, all
yeah.
of
Well,
that.
hopefully this helps with people. And what would you like tips? Actionable stuff. What would you say to anyone who's listened to this, struggling with perfectionism? Like, what are the key things they can think about?
Yeah, I think it's this. Do you know, like I was saying earlier on, there are things that you can do beforehand.
Mm,
Like I think sometimes people like say they're struggling with perfectionism and it's like they're going to have to do some, they think you're going to make me do something really brave and I'm not brave
yeah.
enough to do it. And so for me, and then so then they do nothing about it,
Hmm.
which is a bit like me with the snakes thing. But it's like I'm not doing anything about it because you're going to make me expose me to snakes, and that's exactly what I don't want. And I think it's a really similar sort of. I think that could be a metaphor really for how it feels when
Yeah.
someone's trying to get out of anxiety, perfectionism, procrastination, all those things I think are, family. So for me, it's all about this. You've got to work on your resilience, and there are really active ways you can work on your resilience. And so there's a few things really. I think one of the first, so I've said this several times and it stands really true. When I was a therapist, the first thing I would do, so someone would come and they would tell me whatever was going on for them. And all I would be thinking, and all I'm thinking and trying to figure out is this person resourced enough to do the work they need to do? And when I say are they resourced enough, what I mean is have they got a good enough support network? I call
Mm.
it, do they have a soft place to land when things go shit? Who's going
Oh,
to
yeah.
pick them up when they don't have a good day? Do they have people to do that? And if people don't, this works too hard. The risks are too
Mm.
big because no one's going to say, don't worry, it's okay. This is all going to be all right. And so one of the first things you've got to do is think to yourself, do I have a soft place to land? Do I have people who've got my back? Is my support network big enough? Or actually, has it dwindled some
Mm.
because people have moved away? Relationships have changed. Some of your support network are preoccupied with other things, family issues, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and so sometimes you can think you have, when you think about it, you realize actually that friend's going through a divorce, so I can't lean on them at the moment. They're leaning
Yeah.
on me. Actually, this person's just lost their mom. Do you see what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
you've really got to have a little think about, do you have a soft place to land? How is your support network? And sometimes that can also be, and we talk about this a lot, sometimes you need a support network for people who understand the thing that you're trying to do. So it's like other
Yes.
hairdressers, that
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Yeah.
depending what it is that you're doing. And so I think once you've got a soft place to land and a support network, I think it's about taking really low stakes risks.
Yeah.
So people worry, it's like, like me, I worry that I'm going to get thrown in a pit of snakes, whereas really just making me look at a picture of them might be smart,
Yeah.
being able to tolerate them on the TV. Do you know,
Yeah.
like, this is the best sort of analogy I can come up with. But it's about doing something really low risk, and knowing that you're not going to die. If
Yeah.
something went wrong or people didn't like the picture that you posted, you've decided that it's copable. I think one of the things that really changed for me, someone said this to me once, and we talk about this because this is how we roll, really. It's really understanding that good enough is fine.
Yeah.
Perfect is really hard, and good enough, sometimes your good is great.
Yeah.
In your
Good
head,
enough's a great place
there's
to live. Yeah.
good enough's great, and I
Yeah.
remember one of my friends who's a therapist saying to me, but is it good enough? And I just thought,
Yeah.
ooh. And they were like,
Yeah.
I just think it's good enough, you
Yeah.
know. And that was really interesting for me to sort of really bring the benchmark down a tiny bit, because
Yeah.
my inner standards are quite high. Good enough is still pretty good, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And
No, I
so I think
agree.
if you're a perfectionist, your standards are probably massive. And so your good enough is probably brilliant. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, I said it earlier, resilience is knowing that you can rely on yourself. It's having this inner confidence, that you can rely on yourself in a tough moment. And I really know that about myself. It's what helps me stand on stage and talk to people. It's what helps me go live, and all
Yeah.
them mad things that we do. Because I always just think this, I can sort of humor my way out of it, is what I actually think quite a lot. I can charm my way out of it. Like, my people tend to think I'm a bit funny, at least. And so I just think I'll style it out. If it goes really wrong, I'll
Style
make
it out
people laugh. I'll do
is the
something,
word. Yeah. Yeah.
and I know that about myself, that is something I can do quite well. And
Yeah.
that's really built my confidence to do stuff like that, And
Yeah.
so I also, I mentioned it earlier, I do have how to build confidence webinar.
Yeah. Let's stick
And
that in the show notes as well.
yeah, I'll stick it in the show notes. I did it, I taught it live, and I now sell the recording.
Yeah.
And so you
I
can
think that's
watch
a good
that.
shout.
It's
Yeah.
about an hour and 15 minutes.
Get
And
yourself
it's
on that
really
and you'll be
good. I talk
styling things
about,
out.
it's basically step by step how you build confidence, what perfectionism's all about, how to think about it, what are steps to get out of it, taking safe risks. It's a step by step thing of how to build your confidence, and start reducing things like perfectionism and all that stuff. So
I love that.
yeah, it's good.
Sounds mint. And I don't want to say it's going to save you 6 years in therapy, because I know things are not a replacement for therapy, but the joy
But
of,
the person who wrote it has had 6 years in
yeah,
therapy
that's
and
what I
learned
always
some
say is
stuff.
like, yeah,
I'd
like you
like to
can
convey you what I've
shorten the
learned.
time. Yeah. You can kind of
I
save
learned
you a
it the
bunch of
long way
time along the
round,
job. Yeah.
and there's
I
some
always say
stuff
I
that
did
you
it the
could learn
hard
quite
way,
quick.
so you can do it the easy way. Yeah.
Yes, and I'll do my best to
Um,
teach it quickly.
yeah, no, that sounds really good. We'll make sure we'll pop that in. Should we do a little Joey final thoughts?
A Jerry Springer moment.
Yeah, a little
Yes,
Jerry Springer moment.
yes. You go first.
Quiet in the
What's your final
room.
thoughts on perfectionism, Maddie?
So there's a phrase that I share all the time. I love me little catchphrases, and it's this: imperfect action is better than perfect inaction, because that's what perfectionism is. Perfectionism manifests as inaction. It's that I'm not doing it
Yeah, it
until,
does.
so it
Stuck.
just doesn't get done. And just exactly as you say, is good enough. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even
It is,
think of
it's
it as
that, isn't it?
imperfect action. It's
What's
not.
good
It's not
enough?
shit action. It's just good
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, something. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I
That's
really
mine.
like
What's
that.
what's yours?
Mine is that, do you remember I always say that my therapist said to me, I say this all the time on episodes, we're not going to be able to sit in this room forever and plan your life, Hayley. At some
Yeah,
point, you're just going to have to go out there and live it, and then we'll figure it out. Then you can
yeah,
come back when you've got problems and we'll figure it out. Whereas I was trying to preempt everything that ever might happen, due to anxiety and, all the things, and make sure I was fully prepared. And what I really took from that was sometimes you've got to learn on the job, you've got to learn on life, you've got to learn in the moment. And so you've got to find a way, by doing like having a support network and all that stuff to make you brave enough to be able to take feedback. I think that's what it is. That's, when you feel you've got to get yourself to a place where you can cope with a little bit of feedback, because then you can really start learning on the job, learning as you're doing things in life, taking very small steps. Start looking at pictures of snakes. Start watching the Jungle program. What's that called? Oh, absolutely not. What's the one called with Ant and Dec on the Jungle?
Oh,
I
I'm a
can't cope with it.
Celebrity. No, I just can't watch people eating.
Horror.
I can't
I'd
watch
rather
people
eat
eating gross
spiders than
things.
put my hand in a load of snakes looking for a star. I'd rather die.
No.
So yeah, there you go. So I just think it's that. Sometimes you've got to find a way to get yourself to a place to be a little bit brave.
Yeah,
perfectionism is like sitting in a room planning.
Yeah,
it's like trying to plan and then never leave the room and never do the thing.
It's like it's a bit like doing a theory test. Doing a theory test does not mean you are a good driver. You are sat in a room on a computer. You learn how to, and even in your lessons, and this is a bit like therapy. The funny thing I think about therapy is that it's not in the room that it works. It's all of the space between the room that it works.
Yeah, I think about it as this. It gives you the tools to cope.
Yeah,
when things go wrong. That's the best we can hope for.
Yeah,
it's a bit like, when you see parents, as a person who was a therapist of teenagers, what I saw was parenting styles that wasn't giving their kids tools to cope. It was trying to protect them from life. And this is it's not useful. The best we can hope for is having the tools to cope when things go wrong. It's not possible to create situations where things don't go wrong. And that's where perfectionism's confused. It thinks it is.
Kit. Yeah.
If I just know enough, nothing will ever go wrong. And really it's about accepting that things do. It's about learning to cope.
Love that. Amazing. Thank you. I'm sure there'll be a lot of blown minds in traffic jams right now, or on dog walks and stuff.
I hope so.
So do let us know. As always, getting our DMs. Let us know what you think if it resonates. Shall we do a little cheeky hyper focus?
Yes, I've got one. So, I've got a TV show that I'm revisiting, which I'm a massive fan of. And it's definitely been brought up before on the podcast. But this programme is now into its 16th series, and I love it so much. And if people don't think it's funny, I just think there's something wrong with them. And I'm sure you like this. Let's hope so. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I was like bated breath waiting for you to say that. I
love it so much.
Love It's Always Sunny.
So much.
Can I tell you my favourite episodes and the early episodes?
Yes.
And I'll tell you why they're my favourite episodes.
I've got two favourite episodes.
I have two. My two absolute favourite episodes are Frank's Pretty Woman, which is just
I'm gonna write it down.
So funny. Frank gets into a relationship with a lady who does a particular job, and her character's just amazing, and Dee's just like obsessed with her.
That sounds vaguely familiar. What series do you think it is?
It's loosely. Early on, it'll be like 3 or 4 or something like that, maybe.
Okay.
And then my other favourite episode is Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare, where they...
That's the one!
Is that the one? Is that your favourite one?
That's when they go on crack. That's when they go on crack and they sit on the stoop all the time.
Yeah.
That is one of my favourite episodes.
I feel like we need to give a bit of an explainer to people who are like, why are you watching this programme?
I think let's give no explanation.
Okay, let's give no explanation. It makes perfect sense. It's every character pretty much. It's basically like the anti-sitcom, isn't it? Because the creators were like, every sitcom, everyone's gorgeous, everyone's having a great life, they all look great, everything's really happy. They were like, let's just make a sitcom full of like degenerate, awful, unlikable people.
I think
It's amazing.
everyone's a raging narcissist in it.
Yeah.
But everyone is gorgeous. Like, they are all good looking people. And what
Yeah.
I quite like about it is you've got good looking people playing awful people. And I
Yeah.
feel like that doesn't happen a lot. Like, baddies
Yeah.
are ugly and, you know, and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But like, these are hot humans in the main.
Yeah.
And I just love that about it. I'll tell you my other favourite episode, Maddie. It's
Yeah.
the where they make a musical.
Yes. Oh my
Dayman.
God. Oh.
And where Dee can't get her arms up because the dress is too tight.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh,
I
it's
love it so
amazing.
much. That's
The
my favourite
Toronto,
episode.
the song about the. I always say
It's
that.
just dead good.
Oh, honestly, it's amazing.
It's brilliant.
I was in a Facebook, I love a Facebook group. I was in a Facebook group that was like fans of It's Always Sunny, and like the meme quality was just
Excellent.
amazing. I love Dennis. I love the Dennis system when he takes women out on the boat. Like, oh my God, it's so good.
I watched
I
one
need to rewatch
yesterday where it was like Dennis was doing his system for attracting women backwards to attract men. It was crackers, the whole thing. Because he was trying to help Dee get a fella and Mac. The whole thing was brilliant. I just think it's really well written, and it's still funny in series 16. It's just good. And
I haven't actually watched the last couple, so I'll get around to
No,
those.
I hadn't. I kind of watch a few and then I, go into something else. And so I'm just catching up on series 16 at the minute, and
it's
loving
so good.
life.
It is amazing.
And I really like that, like,
yeah,
the characters are married, like Dee and Mac are married in real life.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of scenes where they talk about how revolting the other one is. Which I just think must be really fun.
Do you know Charlie is married to the waitress in real life?
Yeah.
Because he's like obsessed with her in the show.
In the beginning ones, yeah, brilliant.
I absolutely love it.
There you go.
Also randomly Danny DeVito shows up in like season 2 and is just in it forever after that. So that's
and he's still in it. It's so good. So anyone who's like, what are you talking about, folks? It's Only Sunny in Philadelphia, and it's on Netflix.
And it's so good.
Humour wise, it's dark. So, if that's not your bag, don't go there.
Yeah, avoid. I feel like I've got the most basic bitch hyper focus ever. But
go on.
Sometimes that happens.
Go on.
It's a food one. The humble crumpet. I'm like in such a little crumpet mood at the minute because we love toast, don't we? We love bread that you can just put in the toaster. Me and you love an easy life. We love a carb
snack. I like
carb with fat on top. But just something about crumpets, I feel like it's like a next level, but
elevated.
Also just incredibly easy. So that's
really
what I'm in at the
English,
minute.
Don't you think? Really English.
Very English. And if you want to elevate it further, I recommend like an eggy crumpet, a bit like an eggy bread, but you make it with crumpets.
I've seen this
really good.
On the reels.
Very tasty.
I've seen a bit of this on the reels. I saw someone making crumpet churros in the air fryer the other day. There's a lot of air fryer crumpet situation happening.
Oh, and
I bought a packet of crumpets the other week and loved it. Love it.
Yeah.
Ooh, like
good.
So
well,
ginger burn. They've got to be burnt. Haven't they?
I do 1.5. So I'll do a normal toast one. Aidan does a double cook. I'll do a 1.5. That's perfect for me. Yeah, you don't want a half done
It's like the saddest thing. It makes me feel a bit sick, actually. You might as well eat it raw, haven't you? I want it leaning towards burning. Crumpets are excellent.
Yeah. You need it to feel
Big fan.
crispy.
Have you seen in New York, they have that cafe? God, I'm not going to remember the name now, Anna. What's the English cafe called in New York, Maddie?
Oh my God, I don't know.
I'm going to have to do this on another episode because my brain's not working.
English cafe.
I can't think what it's called, but you can get crumpets there, and it's quite a big thing there. It's a British cafe. Like they do roast dinners on Sundays. They do afternoon teas. They do fry-ups. They do Vimto. They put gravy on everything. It does a lot of English stuff. I can't think what it's called.
Well, I hope it's good. I have a bit of mistrust about this, and I told you this in Vegas, but when I went to Florida when I was little, I remember seeing a sign that was like, world famous English fish and chips, Harry Ramsbottom's, and I was like, isn't it Harry Ramsden's? and obviously I go to the States quite a lot, and sometimes they're like authentic British. It's really not like ours, so I need to find this place.
Yeah, it's still the American bacon and all of that. It's called Tea and Sympathy, I think. I think it's called
I've
Tea and
heard of this.
Sympathy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's got a chippy next door. They have a chippy as well. I can't remember what the
Okay.
chippy's called.
I need to get
I've been
onto
in Tea and
this.
Sympathy though. I had crumpets.
Yeah.
That's why I remembered.
Were they like
And my mate,
$19?
oh yeah, exactly that. And my friend who lived in New York had beans on toast because that's just not really a thing in America. And he was
No,
like, "Let's go and
can't get
get
beat.
beans on
Yeah.
toast." I was like,
Baked
"Well, I had
beans are
them
so
last week, but I'll
expensive
come
there.
with you."
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it.
but and
Okay,
they
right,
also
let's
have a
get
few
on that.
things like Heinz tins. You might want. I
Yes.
think it's in the West Village, maybe. I think it's in the West
Okay,
Village as a vague memory guess. It's been a long time, but have a look when you're there, Maddie.
I will do.
Go and get a
Um,
crumpet.
oh well, a perfection, crumpet perfection. That's the only perfection I want in my life. A perfectly toasted crumpet.
Yes,
Do you like that little wrap
yes.
up there?
I feel like I'm going to
Well,
buy some crumpets. That's what's
I
happening.
know that's the new vibe. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll see you
Yes,
next
enjoyed
time.
it very much. See you
See you in a bit.
later.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments.
Please support those who support us and check out Timely, who we recommend as our favourite booking system for you. New customers can get 50% off their first 3 months with a code COFFEE50.